A new and mysterious explosion has struck the Iranian capital, Tehran, within the past 24 hours at a particularly sensitive and crucial time for the Iranian regime. This incident has been widely reported by numerous informed Iranian sources. Among these sources is Iran International. There were also video footage and clips showing the nature of this explosion, which manifested in this particular way. There have been no explanations whatsoever from the Iranian regime regarding precisely what occurred here. They have not commented on the situation. Why did the fire erupt, especially considering that temperatures are not particularly high? No, not at all. In fact, we are currently in the middle of winter, and that the extent of the material damage was extremely significant. It is also not yet clear whether there were any deaths or wounded individuals specifically from this particular location. There were also images but captured from a distance illustrating that this was the scene in Tehran yesterday. It appeared in this manner, accompanied by this highly suspicious blaze. And if we try to utilize all the available information to pinpoint exactly where this explosion originated, we will observe that we are facing a public road and also a square here with a fence with what appears to be this warehouse and another building.
These signs allow us to deduce that the explosion came from this direction approximately.
Therefore, if we take into account the information available regarding where this explosion occurred, the reports indicate that it specifically came towards Tarkhan Road. And if we proceed to this road, this is Tarkhan Road located here to the south, and the angle that is consistent with the image we identified just a moment ago is precisely this particular angle. Let's get a clearer picture from the satellite, and then you will see that we are looking at the very same signs we've discussed. This is the warehouse, and this is the building that's visible. Therefore, the fire came from this direction, meaning the point where the fire started is very likely to be this exact spot. And if we try to get closer to this point to see what this building is that has caught fire, we will find it's an electrical power station. Specifically, it is the Alston station that was engulfed in flames, as news reports have already stated and confirmed this matter. An ignition point in this area could cause a nearby warehouse to catch fire. This station, of course, continues to operate normally. A picture from another angle, a video clip from another angle shows you exactly what ignited and where the fire started in this area. And if we stop here at this point, let's take a clearer satellite image. You can see this extremely distinctive building, and also right here there's a warehouse, and this large building is situated right beside it. This is where the fire originates. How did we come to know this? It is through the image that will now appear before you, where you can observe these same markings, the exact same warehouse, and this is also the large building. Therefore, the fire was precisely at this spot, and there was a video clip that, of course, clearly shows you the fire igniting for this. The crucial point is, if we get closer to this specific area, it was precisely the power tower station, or more accurately, the cooling tower itself, that caught fire. Consequently, flames engulfed this vital cooling section of the electrical power plant. This signifies that the entire station is now completely inoperable due to the extensive fire. This could be an accident, but what truly raises suspicion about what occurred here is the precise timing of this particular fire and this explosion. It also comes after several mysterious explosions and fires that we witnessed just last weekend. For example, earlier this week, we were actually dealing with a fire near one of the warehouses belonging to the Iranian Armed Forces General Staff in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Also in the Iranian capital, Tehran, there was a significant fire that also affected one of the commercial complexes situated in that area. As we can observe, many markets were engulfed in massive flames. We must also pay attention to the demonstrations and the merchants' protests, which is an issue we must also consider. Also, there were fires during the past 2 weeks that affected southwest Tehran. For example, in Bandar Abbas, an interesting explosion occurred in 2 locations, as we can observe here, and also another fire in Karaj. Fires, explosions here and there. Who is responsible? And some people believe that the demonstrators themselves are carrying out these operations. The opposition is the one responsible for these activities, and others also suggest that Israel stands behind this entire matter, especially considering the fire at the electrical power station in Tehran, which is currently experiencing a great deal of pressure. This incident will tremendously escalate the pressure concerning the economic losses that Iran is currently enduring. When we understand that the electricity here impacts organizations, factories will not be able to produce as required, and this also applies to military establishments. Iran's internal security forces, with all their stations, their centers, and other facilities without electricity, are completely unable to function or even mobilize under these difficult circumstances. Furthermore, the power outage significantly increases the suffering of protesting citizens who are already exasperated by the collapse of the Iranian currency and deteriorating public services. Now the electricity crisis is added to their existing problems.
We must also not forget the water problem, which is a perennial issue that has deteriorated with the passing of years.
And when we speak of the explosion that took place in Tehran, alongside the many other blasts we have witnessed recently, Tehran in particular experienced the highest proportion of demonstrations among all the recent protests. And furthermore, the demonstrators who gathered last night, their actions coincide with today, which specifically marks the anniversary
of the Iranian Revolution and the coming of Khomeini to Iran. The celebrations appeared in this manner coming from the side of the Iranian regime. However, the cries of the distressed and angry people who are against the Iranian regime emerged from within the apartments and homes located here. They were denouncing the supreme leader and expressing their desire for this year to be the year of the downfall of the supreme leader and the entire Iranian regime. Naturally, this is just one shot from one.
Normally within Melman, we don't usually see footage like this. This is the very first year we've seen images of this kind. Also, the demonstrations are very likely to return. As Al-Wasat reported 6 days ago, there are calls from merchants for the protests to return once again with a new wave, specifically on the 17th and 18th of this month. And this marks the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. And demonstrations are scheduled to take place in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, the Grand Bazaar of Tehran, which is widely regarded as an extremely volatile location. These protests initially erupted from this very place when the Iranian Shah was overthrown, and they have now re-emerged. And there was suppression by the Iranian regime of these demonstrations, and it is probable that they will return once again from this point. Consequently, this could mean that the demonstrators this time have the intention to exert pressure on the Iranian regime at the highest levels, regardless of what the United States of America will do. And of course, part of and all these circumstances and the escalation we're discussing come with statements from US President Donald Trump exclusively to Axios that he might send an additional aircraft carrier to launch strikes on Iran if these negotiations fail. But when we look at the nature of American aircraft carrier deployment, you'll notice, among all the carriers far from the Middle East, where the giant American aircraft carrier, the Abraham Lincoln, is located. And
these aircraft carriers, and Savisha, should there be an order, for instance, for Chi, and for the USS George Washington or any of the other carriers to deploy to the Middle East region, they would require anywhere from 15 to 20 days to arrive in that area to confront Iran, to provide support to their allies, and to assist the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier.
It therefore appears that there is pressure and a media game being played by the American president to push Iran to agree and make greater concessions in the upcoming round, which will be held in Muscat. Well, of course, speaking to Israel's Channel 12 of AND12, Donald Trump officially declared to this channel that the agreement he desires is to have a deal concerning both the nuclear issue and the missile issue, involving the restriction and dismantling of nuclear facilities, as well as the restriction of Iran's missile program. He reiterated and emphasized this point to numerous media outlets, such as American Fox News, and he stated that Iran is different this time and they are genuinely seeking an agreement. Therefore, he perceives a real opportunity through diplomacy to achieve an accord this time that would end all these issues and the potential war with Iran. But what's interesting is that Wajran Stone reported that Iran, through intermediaries, and it's believed these intermediaries could potentially be Qatar, Oman, or even Turkey. Iran simply stated that it will not negotiate at this time. It is unable to negotiate on its missile program or even on the issue of supporting militias or armed factions. It does not want to open these files. However, if there were to be an agreement concerning the nuclear issue, it might then be possible to consider opening the files pertaining to the missile program or even the broader question of militias within the region, without the Iranian side addressing the issue of the Iranian regime's commitments to ensure there is no suppression of protesters. This particular matter was recently added by Donald Trump. He wants assurances, Jan, that the Iranian regime will not suppress its protesters ever again. And naturally, given these circumstances, the American military buildup is continuing its movement towards the Middle East region. A C-5 Galaxy aircraft, which is one of the giant military cargo planes, was seen arriving at Qatar's Al Udeid Air Base. This is her personal recording. This particular aircraft was originally scheduled to arrive at Prince Sultan Air Base in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. However, all of a sudden, based on the recordings, it diverted its course to Al Udeid Air Base. This clearly indicates that there are rapid orders and a significant shift in the nature of how defensive systems are being deployed to the region, at least over the past 24 hours. This is the flight from the United States to Europe and from Europe to the Middle East. This is all massive American military air activity over the Middle East. Ala Quds, you can see from the recordings of the C-17 Globemaster, the American military cargo planes. Note here on February 10th and also on February 9th and 8th, large numbers of these aircraft that we are seeing arrive. Ali Al-Salam Air Base بكتية أيضا ستيليس for example أنا سطت إلى سدرة سطت يك Prince Sultan Air Base نص عندي and other such installations are daily receiving assets in the region, and it clearly indicates that there are a great many defensive systems. Even yesterday there was a flyover of 6 F-35 stealth aircraft. Accompanying it, 3 aerial ALL refueling aircraft appeared, having departed from the US, the state of Maine, on a course set for Great Britain. However, today, since the early hours of this afternoon, those very same 3 aircraft were observed flying in the direction of the Middle East region. Reports have now confirmed that 6 American F-35 stealth fighter jets have moved into the Middle East region, and it is now presumed they have already arrived in this area as a significant increase in power. Additionally, KC-135 Ferfafin and other 35 refueling aircraft are still continuing to arrive in the region. Note the dates, February 10th. Here you can observe the KC-135 aircraft continuously arriving. These are the dates, the 9th, the 8th, and here the 7th. This is, of course, a very important matter. The more KC-135s there are, and the more their presence increases within the Middle East region, it signifies a clear increase in logistical support for a potential offensive operation against Iran. For instance, at Al Udeid Air Base, this has been observed over the past 72 hours. There were approximately 13 or exactly 13 KC-135 aircraft present and deployed here. The latest image from Al Udeid Air Base today shows 16 KC-135 aircraft. Of course, they fly back and forth, but 16 aircraft are stationed there. This means Al Udeid Air Base will be extensively utilized to support an attack on the Iranian choke point, even without the presence of any fighter jets. You'll also notice to the south of this specific location, Al Udeid Air Base. Then you will observe an RC-135 rivet joint aircraft, which is one of the most important intelligence planes for the United States. To this moment, this aircraft has not flown or gathered any intelligence on Iranian territory. However, this aircraft is positioned towards Iran. Additionally, today we observed flights by a P-8A Poseidon and an MQ-4C Triton aircraft to monitor the maritime situation, the deployment of submarines, the deployment of the Iranian Navy. They are gathering all the information. The presence of these 3 planes heading towards Iran means that tension has reached its highest levels, and a target bank has been mapped out to truly prepare for the 0 hour to strike Iran, and there is no slowdown in the process of American military deployment or the military buildup in this region. However, the Iranian side is preparing for electronic warfare at the highest levels. The Sun and Sun. For instance, at the Keshem base, specifically on Keshem Island, Russian electronic warfare systems have emerged, indicating that Iran has taken delivery of them. Iran received these systems in September of 2023. They are positioned in this particular direction from the Strait of Hormuz, directly facing the Strait of Hormuz. Furthermore, they are also situated here, oriented towards the Gulf of Oman, as well as the Strait of Hormuz, in preparation for any potential operation by the United States to carry out electronic warfare. And then there would be significant strikes to paralyze Iranian capabilities. And this was evident from these systems, specifically the Tirada 2S, which are Russian electronic warfare systems. Satellite imagery has confirmed that Iran possesses these very systems. Attendees, pay attention to the points we highlighted just a moment ago. This is the first instance where these systems are visible, located here near Keshem Island. These are indeed the same systems. You'll notice it's directly facing the Strait of Hormuz. You will also see the same batteries, the same systems are spread out across this entire region. They are right there in front of you. And similarly, when we consider the ultimate segment of these highly significant electronic warfare systems, you will undoubtedly discover that they are also situated precisely within this specific part. This is, of course, defining a very important issue for Iran. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had revealed that Donald Trump was planning to impose a naval blockade on Iran, but he backed away from this plan because he realized that oil prices could potentially skyrocket, and that's a situation that would be impossible to control, just as it specifically happened with Venezuela. Everyone awaits what Netanyahu will announce during his visit to the United States. He had previously appeared in an interview with Steve Witkoff and Kushner. And he began to lay down many conditions that Israel is seeking should an agreement be reached. So what exactly are Israel's conditions in these negotiations with Iran? This is a crucial matter for the American president to ensure peace and stability in the Middle East region.